I am pitching to you is called Silent Sky by Laura Gunderson. And this is a show that is about sexism, specifically in the field of STEM, and about how the achievements of women throughout history have been maliciously forgotten. This story focuses on a woman named Henrietta Leavitt. She was one of the computers, which, like a person who did math, for Harvard in the early 1900s. Her biggest achievement was that she basically, listen, I am not an astronomer, but basically she is the person responsible for measuring distance in space and coming up with the theory that space is infinite and being able to actually measure from like here to stars, and created those formulas. And she did it by watching the stars for endless months and observing the way they changed in space throughout the year. Her and two other women named Annie and Wilhelmina were these older women who were also computers. They came up with this theory, they did all the research, they literally discovered this, and yet they were never given credit for it. Instead, the men who worked at Harvard were given credit for it, and these women were, until recently, forgotten to history. The play focuses on sexism in the workplace, it focuses on women's suffrage, and it also focuses on like a work-life balance situation, and we learn a lot about Henrietta's life and how she had to sacrifice a lot to get ahead in her career because she was a woman and because she wasn't taken seriously. And we learned that the men who were working there with her did not have to make these sacrifices. So the concept that I want to create is sort of focused on the history of it and the storytelling aspect. And I really want to make it feel sort of like you yourself are stargazing. Like you are out in nature, looking up at the stars, and feeling the same way that Henrietta would have felt that led her to this career path. And so what I want to sort of have us imagine is actually being out, like in like a field, looking up at the stars and seeing what she saw, that she was just like in her home, and she would be standing out, like they lived on like a ranch, and she would be standing out in these fields, and she would look up at the stars and see the endless possibilities and the future that she imagined for herself. And so with this concept, I want to do a sort of outdoor theater. So I want you to imagine like here in Kansas City we have Starlight, or like a Shakespeare in the Park situation, where I want to perform this is there's this little stage that's out in front of Strong Hall. I don't know why it's there, but it's convenient for us. Out in front of that stage is this statue of a woman and her. I am going to do more research into this statue, but it's basically about women in STEM, and that's the whole point of the statue, and that's the whole point of this show. And so I really want to make this like a focal point to welcome people into the show, and I want to use this stage so we're actually outside, and I want to perform the show at night so that you can be looking up at the stars the same way Henrietta was. I really want to have it be reminiscent of Greek amphitheaters and like classical, traditional, like original theater, because I really want to phone home the storytelling aspect of it and the oral storytelling tradition. So what we really want to do is like Greek amphitheater style, like they were using the light of the day as their light, and I want us to use the light of the stars as our light for this production, and I want us to feel the way that people have felt for generations when they felt the possibilities of the world around them and they innovated. And I really want to phone home on this like campfire aspect of it, because these women's story has been lost to history, and so I want us to bring it back in the most human way possible, which is just storytelling. And so I want us to sort of have the atmosphere of sitting around a campfire and someone telling this story, because for generations their story was not told. It was people refused to tell this story. So I want us to bring that back in the most natural way possible. More technical wise for like costuming for this show, it takes place in the early 1900s, and I don't want to ignore that. I want that to be clear, especially with the older characters like Annie and Wilhelmina. They are older women set in their ways. They were born, 1800s. So I really want to phone that home, and the women's suffrage movement is a big part of the story, and I want to really focus on that. But it's also a timeless tale of workplace sexism. And so with that, for Henrietta, I want her to have this sort of modern flair to her that she brings to the story. And as the characters interact with her more and learn from her, they also begin to adopt this more modern style and modern sensibility, so that we end up getting them towards the end to look more like us and more modern in what we would imagine. And so when we get this big, beautiful final scene about transformation, we have seen this transformation actually take place. But really, that's the main concept that I want to push here. The story is not just about space and science. It is about the human desire to understand the world around us. And I think this story does a really good job of portraying that, and I want to use my concept to make us all sort of, to feel connected as humans, and to experience the primal feelings that our ancestors would have felt staring up at the stars that has led us to this age and this day. Thank you.